Grazie a tutti, grazie a Claudia Cavallaro pour les sous-titres. Et s'il y a des questions, se ci sono delle domande. Black.
Sì, vedo una domanda.
Bonjour, je n'ai pas compris, les archives, vous les avez récupérées à Hollywood et elles sont où maintenant? Avec vous à Paris?
Oui, les archives sont avec nous à Paris maintenant, en France.
À Rochefort.
À Rochefort, très bien. Et la deuxième question, c'est vous avez retrouvé les négatifs images, mais vous avez aussi retrouvé du son?
Non. Malheureusement, tout ça a été tiré d'un workprint qui a été fait. Ce sont des rushs. Le négatif, malheureusement, a été complètement détruit. Et c'est de grands dommages. Donc tout ce qu'on pouvait, vous avez vu, qu'on a essayé, on est toujours en travail de réparer.
Parle plus dans ton micro.
Réparer la présentation de, par exemple, cette dernière Jules Dassin. Mais ça a été très, très, très difficile de travailler avec un film qui a été, disons, abandonné depuis 40 ans, presque.
Dans un placard.
Ouais.
Humide.
Ouais. Bon, des questions sur le blacklist, parce que vous avez des classiques. Il y a beaucoup de films qui nous devons beaucoup de films à ces gens-là. Si c'est MASH, si c'est Casablanca, si c'est... ils étaient des grands pionniers.
Il y a d'autres questions. Peut-être Blake peut nous dire un tout petit peu pour la restauration. Blake?
Oh, okay. Yeah. The restoration, unfortunately, we had to do everything from the work print and the work print had fallen into the later stages of vinegar syndrome and also had a severe amount of moisture damage because it was stored in the bottom of a closet for a long time. And so we had to go through and in a cutting room find the footage that we could salvage. Luckily, most of the picture was salvageable. The full coat 16 mil mag tracks were not. So what we did is I went back to the original Nagra tapes and then made WAV files from those. And what we see here is actually the first step in restoration. So in the final film, there'll be much more detailed restoration and painting out scratches and things like that.
Je pense que sur les... Oui, pardon, allez-y. Ah, pardon, oui. Je ne vous vois pas.
It's
oui.
okay.
Oui.
I'll ask my question in English.
Yeah.
I was curious by the title of your film, and I was curious to know whether you know a little more about blacks were blacklisted, very literally, and whether so two things. One, will the film be about primarily those who were at that party, or will you have outsides, if you will? Will you weave in outside stories of people who couldn't make, or who were not invited, or who were no longer alive, etc., to get to this party? That's one. And then the second is whether or not among those people potentially some of the black people in the industry, because I certainly remember the very famous Paul Robeson testimony at HUAC. The fact that his passport was withdrawn from him. He couldn't come, he couldn't go to Paris, where he had been invited, for example, in 1956 to attend a huge conference, among others. So I'm just curious whether that factors into your thinking at all.
Well, obviously, it's a vast subject. It's enormous. It also, as you rightly point out, there is our new aspects of the subject. For example, feminism. For example, just to what a little bit Karen Morley touches on it. The Moors, the governing of Moors. Of behavior of the actors who worked for the studios, but we're going to concentrate on what we have, first off. And but the subject is enormous, because after the blacklist, the blacklist included, let me put it this way, we went from an initial Hollywood 10, which in fact was 11, which started out as 19, but 10 go to jail, and then you get the red channels, and then you get a huge list of people who couldn't work. But you know, it's
hundreds and hundreds.
Yeah. It's very, very. I mean, we just talked to somebody in Los Angeles who said some of his clients were survivors of the blacklist, and so we're still working on it, but we have to start from what we have.
In fact, we have about 20 long interviews. You saw some of them, and we are restoring them, and we first focused on their private feelings and their emotions at that time. But of course, they talk also about their IDs and why they were blacklisted, and it's very interesting. But as you can tell, it's quite hard to restore, so we go by, and we focused first because we thought it was very moving on what they really felt at the time, how they felt it was. They didn't believe it was going to happen. They thought they were right. So when the few who went to jail, the 10 who went to jail, were absolutely flabbergasted. They never thought it would happen.
I think it's also interesting that, to get a little bit more precise on your question, there are people, like for example, Ring Lardner, who wrote MASH. He talks about struggle. And the other was Albert Maltz. And inside the Hollywood 10, there were people who said that we had, felt that they were vindicated by the civil rights movement in the 60s, by eventually the feminist movement as well. But it's inside these interviews, and we'll have to bring them out.
And also there is the fact that lots of them managed to work under a pseudonym, another name, and like in the Woody Allen movie, The Front, where they were fronted by someone unknown, and plenty of movies during this period from 1950 to 65, 66 were given Oscars to a wrong name, to a name of someone who didn't exist, because everybody knew it was so-and-so, but so-and-so was blacklisted, so he couldn't get an Oscar, so it was John Doe who got the Oscar for them. It's amazing the number of movies which got Oscars for pseudonyms. There was another question. Ah, yeah.
Est-ce que vous avez utilisé AI pour la restauration? Did you use AI at all for the bits? Because I noticed, I mean, we all probably noticed there were bits where the motion was a little bit weird.
Yeah, this is pretty much the early stages of restoration on it. So, for example, we were using Neat Video for some of it, and we used DaVinci Resolve on this. But what we do is we also use a program that DaVinci made before called Revival, and we're using that for the restoration, for the final restoration on it, because this one you'll see a little bit of motion artifacts and things in the picture, and so we're going to address that in the final version. Yeah.
Right, okay, so it's just because it's the initial part of the process.
Work in progress,
basically,
right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think we'd like to bring out during the course of the next year a first documentary. Now, the length obviously is a question of debate. Standard length was 52. Now it's been pushed up to 60 a bit. And we think the subject certainly deserves 90 minutes.
There is even enough material to do a few documentaries, in fact.
It's more a comment. I would like to thank you, first of all, for this huge work. And I think it's really coming at the right moment, because we are going to have another blacklist soon in the US or elsewhere as well in the world. And I remember that I think the whole branch was traumatized, not only those who were on the blacklist, but all the work done in the 60s and even in the 70s was damaged, was influenced by this blacklist, and not only the cinematographic world, but the cultural world and all other people having, well, to do with culture and literature and cinema and music. So this is a huge work. Thank you so much, and it's really the right time to do it and to come out with it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It is very worrying, but it is also the link to a new Cold War. It's kind of curious how this is pulled out of the hat at just the right time, and now we will see. But we have the question of immigration now, and so on and so forth, and we will see. But yes, it's unfortunately very timely.
It's also interesting to see how these blacklisted people were very influential themselves or their ideas to what became the young cinema of the 70s in America and everywhere, a kind of against authority, against established powers, and like MASH, for example, and plenty of other movies of the time. It is probably they were influential. Their ideas, all the movies they did after they were not blacklisted any longer.
It's a very curious thing to pick up on what you said. We also have been obviously researching and finding other material that is not all that well known. And among it was, of course, the great absent person in the dinner was Dalton Trumbo.
Because he was dead.
He had died in 1976. But Trumbo, we found some very interesting material that was furnished by his daughter, Mitzi Trumbo, where he described the parallels between how he was treated and the way Boris Pasternak was treated. So, and he simply puts it down to the desire to control our thoughts. And this is, I think, exactly what you're aiming at. That's what's going on. Control.
Bonjour, merci beaucoup pour votre présentation. J'avais deux questions. La première, c'était à propos, en fait, vous nous avez présenté deux projets, à la fois le projet de la restauration d'un fonds et celui de la mise en écriture de ce fonds à travers un documentaire. Et la première question que j'avais envie de vous poser, c'est est-ce que vous pensez à une accessibilité du fonds que vous êtes en train de restaurer en dehors de votre documentaire? Et la deuxième question que je me posais, mais vous venez d'y répondre, c'était la question de la complémentarité des fonds. Est-ce que vous allez compléter ce travail avec d'autres fonds et peut-être, je ne sais pas, des fonds dans des pays où des personnes ont été exilées, je ne sais pas, peut-être les ciné-archives en France, voilà.
Alors, voilà, la première question, c'est un petit peu, vous êtes un petit peu en avance sur nous, mais nous y réfléchissons beaucoup à comment rendre disponibles ces archives que nous sommes en train de restaurer, que Blake surtout est en train de restaurer. La deuxième question, bien entendu, le documentaire ou les documentaires seront complétés. Pour vous montrer un petit peu, on a mis ici ce film de 1951 qui était des interviews des premiers blacklistés, ceux qui sont allés en prison, parce que c'était assez émouvant de les voir à l'époque et maintenant. On mettra aussi des extraits des films sur lesquels, de leurs travaux, de leur réalisation, quand c'était ça de leur travail d'acteur. On a mis un petit peu pour Karen Morley, parce qu'elle était une très jolie femme et puis parce qu'on l'avait, mais ça sera effectivement complété et aussi par des interviews aujourd'hui de personnes qui les ont connus ou qui ont joué un rôle ou qui encore ont une opinion très motivée et très importante sur cette question-là. Ça sera le documentaire quand on va arriver à ce moment-là, mais on y est presque.
C'est peut-être intéressant aussi pour vous, nous sommes en contact avec le Screen Actors Guild qui a monté un événement en faveur de l'activité de Paul Jericho, qui n'est pas dans ce film-là, mais il fait partie des interviews que nous avons, qui était le producteur de Salt of the Earth, la serre de la terre, le sel de la terre. Et il avait mené une campagne pour restaurer les vrais noms des scénaristes, etc., sur les films, qui faisait objet d'un événement qu'ils ont filmé. Et ça, nous comptons avec accès à ça aussi. Donc, il y a un mouvement, bien évidemment, travaillant à 3, on va lentement, mais on y est. On prend en compte tout ce que vous avez évoqué et c'est tout à fait vrai qu'il faut mettre ça à disposition un jour au public.
Oui, ça c'est vrai. Paul Jericho et les enfants des blacklistés ont fait tout un travail et continuent pour qu'on restaure sur les credits des films le vrai nom de leur père ou de leur mère quand ils ont travaillé sous des faux noms parce qu'ils étaient blacklistés. C'est pas fini cette histoire-là. Ils continuent, les enfants continuent à travailler là-dessus et il y a beaucoup de boulot.
Je pense que c'est tout récemment que l'Oscar, parce que disons le point de départ de Hollywood sur le Tibre, c'est Vacanze Romane, Roman Holiday, qui a été écrit par Trumbo. Et c'est qu'il y a 10 ans maximum qu'ils ont rendu l'Oscar à Trumbo parce que c'était lui qui l'a écrit.
Et Trumbo a été le premier en 63, 64 à avoir son vrai nom à nouveau sur l'écran. C'était dans
Exodus
de Preminger. Preminger a dit on remet le vrai nom de Trumbo. Et c'était à l'époque une énorme audace, un énorme culot de faire ça. Et il a été le premier, c'est vrai aussi un des plus bagarreurs, mais il a été le premier à retrouver son vrai nom sur les écrans. Voilà.
Bon.
Okay. Et on nous dit que c'est fini. Merci beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup. Mais c'est pour eux.